my esteemed panel members here. I think most of the people here, they are well-known faces in the industry. Let's start with Hilal. Hilal works for Razorpay. Do you want to talk about yourself, Hilal?
Yeah, thanks, Sanjay. Thanks for having me here. My name is Hilal, and I'm the CISO for Razorpay. Before Razorpay, I used to work for 𝗕𝗲𝗯𝗿𝘂 as the CISO. And I have close to like 17 years of experience in information security. Yeah, glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Eeshan.
So I just introduced myself, but just to formally speak again. So I take care for the enterprise business for Thales data protection portfolio, based out of Bangalore only.
Thank you, Eeshan. Navneethan.
Awesome, Sanjay. Very good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me here. I'm Navneethan. I have a close to 21 years of experience in pure cyber, and more just specialized in all the fintech domain, from the end-to-end, setting up a CIO and then CISO function. Really, they're happy to be part of, and allowed to learn.
Got it. Thanks, Navneethan. So let's start with maybe Navneethan. The first question. See, data privacy and security is one of, I think, the hot topics in current situation. When you come up with, say ideas or the roadmap for next year that here are few things on the data privacy, security that I'm going to work on, how do you convince your leadership that first, how it is going to create an impact and what's the value add that it is going to add in the organization? Because typically anything related to security, you cannot show the value, right? And you cannot quantify that. So what's your approach in that?
I think most of the CISOs and CIO face the same problem, right? When we are doing the budgeting, when you are doing the board meeting, and let us take it as you are making it as maybe some X million as the projected budget, and how you are going to justify, right? We cannot say that if there is no incident, maybe from the last year, we cannot say that the 2 million, whatever it is going to invest, it's going to be wasted, right? It's like how you are taking the insurance for ourselves. Like, if you're not claiming insurance, we should be happy because we are healthy enough, right? It should not be like, we should not worried about like we are not claiming, our insurance. So the same way, right? What are the investments we make it in an organization in terms of defensive and then offensive? Really just we want to ensure that things are taken care well. And second one is from my board presentation, just how I make it as, I take a lot of use case and a lot of my peers, what are the attack they have gone through that. Because just purely into the B2C, right? On the B2C side, wherever just account takeover and what are the other DDoS attack in terms of, because earlier if you see security, it's only on the confidentiality integrity. Now just we have a lot of focus on availability standpoint also. Because just, you know that, right? A few minutes, I don't want to disclose the company name, but just a few minutes, there is a couple of, disconnect on the, accessibility. It went and broadcast in the bigger wing because of, the lack of availability, what has been, taken care. So that's why we projected a lot of use cases, which is happened in the industry, a lot of incident, and it shows like what is the impact they have gone through, not only on in terms of revenue. We project in terms of the reputation loss, right? As a CEO, I may have, or he may have a plan of like, we want to have a 3x plan. It's a one incident of availability, one incident of maybe any small compromise, or maybe something on the, the social media. It may put you into the minus 3x. That's straight away. That's what it is a current trend, right? That's what we keep all the people on the digital brand monitoring also. It's a bigger way. By mistake, somebody is saying that like there is a incident roaming around, it's maybe some compromise, because it's like a dark web can be accessed by anyone, right? Now we are thinking like the data goes only via organization. It's not the case. It goes via the end user browser also. But from outside, people will think there is, the millions of data. But it's like once you compromise your complete browser, that also it goes via data leakage, right? So that aspects, there is a lot of, things are going around. Just we want to make it as a very justification. Which are the loophole, which are the way just where the people can go out, and that way it's justified. It's like maybe simple analogy I can take it, right? Maybe somewhere you heard that's a news called accident. Okay, how you feel? You don't feel like okay, accident, right? So maybe there's some bigger container lorry it comes, and then you are driving on the car highway. Just a few seconds before both of you apply to brake, you will have a jerk in your heart and mind. Right? It's not so easy to live over there. So that's a feel, we should give it to the, the board and, the CIO to make them understand what exactly. Because then only they realize, right? We cannot make it as X, Y, Z, all the things. We should give a feel. If you don't have what's the things you will, lose it over there. Just,
No, I think it's really good analogy, especially on the insurance side. I mean, insurance, we don't take it because, we are not going to be there starting tomorrow. But if that situation happens, we are ready for that, right? So I think really nice analogy. Eeshan, if I can come to you with the next question. There is a lot of discussion now related to the PII data protection and how do we prevent our customers' data and especially the PII information. What's the thought process from your angle? What kind of focus that we need to have more strengthening or more control around the PII data?
So, as of now, what you rightly said is the PII data part. Until now, it was most importantly the financial data that we need to secure as per whatever RBI says. But with the upcoming data protection bill, this PII data is becoming the most important thing. So, PII data, what we usually store is into our databases, and that contains the most important information which we might not know that this is also critical, right from our name, not our phone number, our blood group, or any just very small things. This is all PII data, and protecting that is really important because it's not only a threat to us. If you look at you might laugh on that part, but that's a reality. It's a threat to the nation as well, because if such kind of attacks keeps on going, it will not only be limited to multiple or individual organization, but across the nation as well. So that's where this personal data protection bill is coming up. It's been a little bit delayed since 1.5 years, but once it comes, it will specifically target to secure, to protect your PII data, which means that you need to encrypt that in a particular format of the highest value. And then again, what I was just discussing in my presentation, to manage the encryption keys, that needs to be away from your encrypted data and in a secure key manager, which can be anywhere.
Yeah, but tell me one thing. How come, say information like my name, my phone number, my say blood group is so critical that if it gets leaked, suppose you come to know about it, I'm at threat now.
So, okay, so let's take an example about my blood group only. So if there is any kind of because this kind of information seems to be very small as of now, because we do not have any such threats, but there can be. So if people get to know about in total some data analytics about what blood group a certain person are there in India or in a particular state, then there can be certain kind of let's say a virus spread that can be spread across for those particular kind of people. So it seems to be a very vast thing, but that is true, which will not take even us a little bit of time to spread across. So that's about blood group. In fact, even if I talk you about some of the smart city project that's going on, the reason of data protection in smart city project, the idea of smart city project is to put CCTV cameras across. Now, why this data of CCTV camera is important? Any person who wants to provide you any kind of a harm, they can actually track your day-to-day activities. Okay, leave apart us. I am just a normal person. Let's talk about any kind of a business tycoon, a CEO of a big company, or even ministers. They can track their data, what time they move out of their houses, if there are smart city, if there are cameras across the city, what time they leave their house, what time they go to gym, what time they go to office, and they have analytics of that. And basis of that, anything can be done, any kidnapping can be done, anything. That's where the smart city project is coming, and that's how they ask to protect that data of the camera also. So looks very normal, but at the back end, it's very critical for every one of them.
Right. I mean, a lot of times, right, we don't even think if someone asks for our Aadhaar number or phone number, we just straight away give. But I think what you are saying that it is extremely important for us to think twice that, hey, correct, is it really needed?
Correct. And that's where, for Aadhaar number is now very much open, why it is important. That's where UIDAI even asks that if you are storing Aadhaar number, you need to tokenize that value. You cannot store it in clean text. You need to use a reference number. That's only you can use. So government has started doing this, and it will not be much longer when we'll have this PDP bill just like GDPR in India also.
Thank you, Eeshan. Hilal, if I can come to you now. Sure. When we talk about the encryption, right? Encryption, there is at least a thought process, could be myth, that the moment you say encryption, that means there is going to be a lot of overhead, right? With encryption, when I'm going to read the data, that means I have to decrypt it. right? And encryption and decryption will have some overhead either on your performance, application performance, or somewhere else, maybe on your network. What's your view on that?
Yeah, so that's actually like a thing I believe has been in discussion for quite some time, right? So everybody feels that, okay, you have additional encryption to be done or decryption to be done on the data that you basically like send through different channels, or you use that data. While using the data, you have to sort of like decrypt the data and all that. That will be an overhead overall to your basically your applications and services, right? So I think this used to be like a major roadblock with respect to basically adoption and encryption in the past, right? So since then we have come like a long way from that, and we have seen like adoption of encryption possibly at every particular level, right? In fact, like Eeshan was earlier talking about, basically like now it has evolved to a level where you are in charge of your own encryption keys and your own encryption modules, algorithms, and things like that. So earlier, if you remember, right? So some time back, like there was this major discussion around basically the data privacy through basically Google, basically search engines, WhatsApp data, for example, the end-to-end encryption, right? Everybody felt that, okay, it's going to kill it, right? So like, but of course, like what happened was that the need to have it encrypted and the need to have that data protected was so high that we did actually evolve from that. So the overhead that you used to have, like in fact, like in the past we used to have like dedicated systems for basically decryption and all that. Like for example, we used to have SSL offloaders and things like that, which kind of made this encryption, entire encryption process a little simpler, right? But now, like if you think about it, like all of basically data encryption basically starts from your privacy requirements of encryption to be implemented on that to basically make sure that the data remains confidential and has integrity around it. So I do believe that organizations that cannot afford basically sophisticated systems and services that allow basically you to have the encryption services on board. So for them, it might actually be a little bit of overhead, but of course the efficiency in the overall implementation of encryption systems has increased to a level where these things are basically marginally acceptable. So in fact, as part of the regulatory and other challenge that we have in the industry, right? So this is actually one of the primary controls that we need to satisfy with respect to data privacy and data encryption, right? So data protection. So it becomes inevitable for us to adopt it, right? So the overhead actually is like it's a necessary evil for us to have, right? I do agree with you that it does have overhead at certain points, but I also strongly believe that we have actually increased the efficiency in our encryption modules and systems like HSMs and all that. We have improved it to a level where it does not actually bother us anymore. It's like one more control that's integral for our infrastructure security and privacy.
No, I think very nicely put. I mean, as you said, it may have some overhead, but then you plan for it. It's not an option anymore, right? I mean, given that we are talking about a lot of challenges, issues because of the absence of having encryption in your system. So you plan for it. Even if there is an overhead of say 5%, 10%, you plan for the capacity that hey, I'll have probably 10% more capacity, but I don't want to compromise on the security for my data. Thank you. Eeshan, if I can come back to you on some of the newer technologies like BYOK, BYOE, how it is helping the industry or the organization. First of all, what is BYOK? Is it K is knowledge, E is energy, or something else?
So BYOK is bring your own key. BYO is bring your own encryption. Now, how both are different is that it specifically targets to the cloud market where you have your data infrastructure all cloud based, and whoever is the cloud service provider is keeping your data in clear text. That's where BYOE comes into the picture, where any third-party encryption service provider can encrypt the data which is storing in the cloud. That is BYOE. Now, if the cloud service provider is already taking care for the encryption part and key management part, that's where the BYOK comes into the picture, where the third-party BYOK service provider will help you to own those encryption keys. Now, this owning of encryption keys is really important because you will be having control over that particular data. To justify this thing with the help of a very good example is like most of us might have already opened a locker in a bank where we keep our gold ornaments or such important items. Now, irrespective of whether a bank is a government bank, a SBI bank, ICICI or any top bank, whenever we open a locker, we always keep a key of that locker with us. We are not relying 100% on the bank manager or the bank. Why? That's exactly the same reason, irrespective of whoever is the cloud service provider, they'll not do anything. But what in case if someone tries to do, if bank manager tries to open your locker and steal just one bangle of your wife, then you are gone. Divorce alag se hoga.
So, Sanjay, if I may just add, right? So, I think one of the things that it solves, the BYOE solves, right, is for the ownership, right? For example, like I had a personal, basically like challenge that I needed to resolve, right? For example, like you know that like we have like a lot of communication tools, and one of them is like Slack, for example, right? And there's a lot of data floating around in Slack, and we went to Slack and said, okay, how do we retain the ownership on basically like who's actually accessing, then how do you actually store this and all that, right? And so you leave that to us. So we'll do the encryption for you, and we'll do everything else for you. But it's like a black box, right? So we probably would never get access to how they exactly do that, right? So in order for us to basically make sure that we retain the ownership of that data, it was very important for us to have basically our own keys to basically encrypt that, and we retain the ownership of the keys. And by retaining the ownership of the keys, we inevitably retain the ownership of the data.
Here, no, maybe since you raised Slack always think they are part of your organization. So let's share the data, right? That's what it is, things, move on from, the end-to-end, I can say. Of course, we had a bigger challenges. If you want to hold it, your own keys and own encryptions, again, you should get into the different subscription that's what it is of, the business model, they are coming out actually.
Yeah, true.
So Eeshan, someone had a question that if I have say BYOK or BYOE, suppose say deployed, can I confidently say that hey, my setup is now 100% ransomware safe?
Yes, we can say that, and the primary reason why we can say yes is because whatever locks I have done, I have that key, and that particular key is not just roaming in some server. It's inside a key manager. And that key manager should be a FIPS validated device. And FIPS is a global standard. And if it is a FIPS validated device, even if you go with a FIPS validated level 3 device, which is a tamper-proof device, why it is secure is because leave apart all the technology, even if someone tries to open that box forcefully, it will self-destruct itself. That's how secure a FIPS validated device is. So this is why we can say yes, it's a 100% secure way.
Thank you. Navneethan, so I think we have been talking about data at rest, data in transit. I think so far what we have talked about is primarily data at rest and how do we ensure that whatever is resting, mainly on the data side, how do we encrypt it or how do we keep it in the safe vault. Now there is also a talk about data in transit. Now, why do you think it is critical and important to have encryption even during the transit when the data at rest is anyway encrypted?
So there's a couple of stuff, right? Since maybe Eeshan is here, I can take him a couple of input from him also. It's what it is missing in the industry is holding the accountability and then responsibility, right? The people might not have what services it has been offered, whether it's a SaaS, PaaS, or IaaS, which service I have offered. The people have a myth is like if it's a cloud means like it has been taken care by CSP. It's like nothing to do with us. So that's need a lot of clarity. What services we have been offered, and what services responsibility is held by them, and then accountability lies with us. But irrespective of all, of course, accountability the lies with us in terms of whether it is taken care or not. Right? It's like we have to ensure that. And so in terms of it's very simple, right? The people think about the cloud, like whether we can go for the cloud or whether we can go for the cloud encryption or something. Some action we have to have the trust, right? Just very simple. You are flying on the flight, and how many of you really validate the pilot tests have a proper license? How many hours you flew on the sky, and what kind of experience? Nobody, right? We trust on the airlines. The X airline, okay. Even we don't trust on the airlines. We go with what are the tickets is available, what are the cheapest, and then what is the quickest way, right? We never think like who, because that's a risk over there. The same way, right? We should have the fundamental trust on the stuff in terms of the storage, in terms of the the transmission, whether things are taken care so that apart from us and other people are not holding that. And coming to the transmission, see now the ecosystem is absolutely different than earlier. When maybe I can add use our age because it looks like both are very young. And if you take it 20 years back in the data centers, we have a dedicated service. If you want to bring one service, we used to get it from Singapore. And it takes 45 days to arrive this, the one server, do the puja, have a party over there. That's the days we had it 20 years back. Now it is absolutely different, right? If you want to have a one service or one services, just fraction of second, scale up, scale down, just you can make it up, right? So that's why like a lot of SaaS infrastructure is coming, a lot of dynamics coming over there. So this current complexities really we are not sure, maybe including me, none of the CIOs, CISO can raise a hand, I have a complete control of how many vendors and how many suppliers, how many employees, how many third parties part of my organization. And each one who are all having what level of information. It's very difficult. Definitely there will be a data leak or data access. Or maybe who are the employees left out over there, they also still might have access. So right, it's like a more the mixed environment and the environment is so dynamic. So that's just where we are looking, the end-to-end encryptions play a very significant role. At least to the access level who are all having access, only those people have access on that, including the data trust, what has been taken care. And just coming back to the the key management, just maybe I can share if you have time in terms of the real incident. How many of you rotate the key automatically? It's like every 30 days. Any guess? 90 days. Awesome. Yeah, so maybe 90 days, it's a best practices. How many of you change it automatically as and when that's the employees who takes care of the DevOps or maybe who takes care of complete DBA? Nobody does that, like including myself, just we don't do that because we like just employees leaving, X, Y, Z, that's the reason. The bigger threat is in terms of the access key, in terms of the passwords, in terms of what the connectivity we have established, so they might be knowing. From the public, I can call your API, right? So really just from our side also, we have to go a little bit depth in terms of if X person is living from this organization, where and all he had it, where and all it is a password, and then how it has been taken care. So those level of threats, assessments, which needs to be taken care to ensure that end-to-end transmission as well as on the storage side.
Absolutely correct, and that's where one of the pain point of multiple organization comes to the picture, where they don't have that level of knowledge or training that what needs to be done if one of the employee leaves. So this is one of the things that should be considered. That's where the training part comes into the picture.
Awesome. Somebody.
Eeshan, maybe one final question. I saw in one of your slides that after the CERT-In that has come in, one is, I think for the industry there was a lot of learning that, hey, I have to now comply with this. But I think your slide had that after CERT-In, the number of attacks and other things have gone up, right? And any insights on that?
So insights in the sense like what we have seen post 2020, the number of attacks in terms of ransomware has grown a lot. And along with that, attackers stealing your data and selling it on dark web. That's what has happened a lot. In past 2 years, it has happened like almost 70% in the past as compared to the last 10 years. And one of the major reason is that people are keeping it in clear text, not implementing proper access control, which means you are not taking care of internal threats. External threats, everyone knows, but internal threat is very, very important to tackle upon. And again, the BYOK part. So that's where the attacks have increased, and that's where organizations have now realized that why it has been increasing and why it is really important to secure our data. Because stealing of, I talk to a lot of organizations with respect to understand the feedback that what if your data goes. So there's a change in thought process. Earlier I used to hear ki PI data hi to hai, how does that even matter? But when this thing has happened, with retailers, with the grocery delivery organizations, how their brand image goes down, and because of that, how their revenue goes down. It's a long process to think over, but that's what is happening.
Thank you. Thank you for all the panelists, Hilal, Eeshan, and Navneethan.